Donc on vient dans ce monde.
So we come into this world, apparently,
On prenne naissance dans ce monde.
that we are born into this world.
Au début, les choses sont
And at
simples.
first, things are quite simple.
On n'a que quelques mois.
We're just a few
Pas
months
de
old,
problème.
not many problems,
Tout le temps dans la plénitude, dans
always
la
in
béatitude.
this
Vous avez peut-être oublié,
bliss
mais c'était
and
comme ça.
completeness. You might have forgotten, but it
La
was
paix est
like that.
toujours là, toujours
Peace
sentie.
is always here, always felt.
Puis avec le
And
temps,
with time,
on nous apprend qu'il
we are taught that
y a quelque chose à faire.
there's something to do,
Il faut apprendre des choses pour
that we need to
pouvoir
learn things, to
réaliser des choses,
to
se
achieve
mettre en
things,
quête
and
vers toutes sortes de choses.
we get into some sort of quest to
Et petit à petit, on
get
commence à
things.
sentir
And
une
little
tension.
by little, we start feeling a tension.
Sentir une tension parce que on est comme poussé par le
Feeling a tension because we are
la
pushed
pensée collective
by this collective
à aller dans une direction.
current, this collective thinking
C'est
to
bon, c'est
go
aujourd'hui,
to
la plupart des gens savent pas
into
trop.
one
Ils vont dans une
direction.
mais ils savent pas trop,
It's funny because most of
direction.
people do go some sort of
On court
following
beaucoup
some sort
aujourd'hui
of
sans savoir
direction, but they
vraiment
don't
où on va.
know which direction it is.
Donc, c'est pour ça que il y a de plus en plus de satsang qui commencent à se
That's the
à se
reason
mettre en
why
place. En
there's
Occident, c'est que les
more and
gens
more satsang
commencent à se dire, ok, je
appearing
cours, je fais plein
in
de
Europe.
choses, je brasse beaucoup d'énergie, mais au final,
because people realize that I do a lot of things. I
pas
do
grand-chose. En tout cas, les gens ont l'air déçus au final. Donc, on cherche autre chose.
they look for something else because they're
Et la question,
disappointed
c'est,
by
mais qu'est-ce
what
qu'on
they've been
cherche
doing before. And what is it? What is it that we are looking for?
C'est la question que moi, je
That's the question that
poser aujourd'hui.
I wanted to ask you
Pourquoi vous
today.
êtes là?
Is why are you here?
Parce que c'est une question fondamentale à se poser.
It is quite a fundamental question to ask yourself.
Qu'est-ce que je veux vraiment en fait?
What is it that
Il y a très
I
peu
really
d'humains
want?
sur cette terre qui s'arrêtent.
There's not so many humans on this planet that would stop to ask
C'est fondamental.
themselves that question. And it's fundamental.
Donc,
So,
la paix,
peace. All right, peace.
c'est-
Being.
bah,
Well,
être, tu l'es
you are being already.
pleinement.
Fully. Okay.
D'accord. Ça a un rapport. La
Joy.
joie aussi.
Yes.
Ok. Donc tout ce que vous me dites, ça a à voir avec un état d'être.
All that you're telling me, it has to do with a state of being joyful, being peaceful.
Quelque part, tout le monde veut ça. Mais c'est la
Everybody
façon
wants
d'y
that.
prendre qui est plus ou moins
And
adroite.
it's how we try and get it that is more or less fruitful.
On cherche à travers l'action au début. On
At
cherche
first,
à
we
travers le
tend
faire,
to
c'est
look
normal.
through doing.
On pense qu'on va trouver quelque chose. Ça
We think that it's going to be the fruit of an action, and it's very, very French.
On
It's-
nous a,
We've
on nous
to
a
do that.
appris ça.
We've been taught that.
Ou plutôt, on nous a désappris qu'on savait déjà
Or
être dans la
we,
joie. C'est comme si on nous avait appris que
it's like we've been taught
la joie naturelle de l'être,
that the natural
ça
joy
devait,
of beingness had to
devait faire quelque chose pour
had to
l'obtenir.
do something,
C'est comme,
had to
quand on
we
apprend
had to
quand
do
on est
something to
enfant, en fait,
obtain
on apprend
it.
le jeu, on joue tout le temps et on apprend comme ça. Et là, il y a des adultes qui arrivent et qui nous disent, mais non, en fait, mais si tu veux jouer, en fait, je connais un
As
meilleur jeu pour
kids,
toi. Et
we
là, on nous prend
learn
des jeux
through
qui ont été
playing,
fabriqués
and
de
then
toutes pièces pour l'enfant.
adults came
Pour que
in
là,
saying,
là,
I know
c'est
a game that
vrai
is
jeu
better
qui-
for you.
puis là, tu peux
And so
jouer
we
de
give them
telle heure à telle heure.
a game that
On
has
a
been
compartimenté
constructed
la vie, en fait.
for them. So
T'as
this
un
is a
temps
good
pour,
game. So you can play
pour
from
jouer,
that
apprendre à
time
être
to that
joyeux.
time.
Puis t'as un
So we
temps
start
où,
compartmentalize
là, non, c'est
life.
sérieux.
So
Et
you have a
on a
time
fait
where you
des-
can be joyful and play,
disséqué les
and
instants
after
comme
that, there's a time where, well, now this is
il y a des
serious.
moments où tu peux
So
vraiment être toi,
there's some sort of
épanoui,
dissection of
joyeux,
life,
heureux, et puis il y a des
you know,
moments
with
où,
moments where you
non, parce
can
que,
be yourself,
parce
like
que la vie c'est comme ça.
blossoming and being joyful, and other moments where no, you can't because this is how life is, and there's no reason.
On tend
no explanation for that.
vers cette joie, on veut
So
toujours être dans notre état
automatically
naturel.
we
Donc, du coup,
tend
ce qu'on va faire, c'est
to
qu'on croit ce qu'on nous a dit.
we seek this joy, this natural state.
Fais tout
So
ce qu'il faut,
we
mets tout ce qu'il
believe
faut
what
en
we've
place
been
dans ta vie
told,
pour
which
pouvoir un
is
jour avoir les conditions du bonheur. C'est un peu
do
la
do what
promesse.
you have to do to
Sauf que quand on essaie
get
ça,
happiness one
ça
day.
marche pas.
And
Je pense
that's
que,
the sort
vous
of
êtes convaincus,
promise.
mais il y a beaucoup
And
de
we
gens qui
try
y croient,
that,
mais à un
but
moment
doesn't
donné, ils
work.
finissent par se rendre compte que non, ça fonctionne pas.
I think you know that already.
Donc,
You're convinced because you're here. But lots of people,
Il y a
yeah,
deux façons dont ça se produit en général. Le changement du courant.
don't know that, and
Donc, le courant
we have to.
extérieur
They
s'inverse
realize that
quand
we
il y a
have to
soit souffrance,
find another way.
soit
So
une
there's
expérience
this
d'éveil.
is a sort of current that goes one way all your life, and then at some point it kind of turn back,
Il y a que ces deux options-là.
which usually can
Mais les deux
it's
amènent le même
due
résultat.
to suffering.
La souffrance
So
qui
there's
nous
either
pousse,
suffering
en
or
fait, à
a glimpse
nous
of awakening
retrouver
can
dans l'espace en nous, il y a plus de
give you
souffrance.
that thirst
C'est
for
quelque
the
part un
truth.
cadeau de la vie qui nous pousse à chercher là
So there's
où
a
c'est
force
sécuritaire.
that is pushing us
Et
to
là où c'est
find
sécuritaire,
the place where
ça
it's
sera jamais
safe,
lié
and it's never going to be linked
aux
or
objets de ce
connected
monde,
to
aux
objects of this
circonstances
world
de ce monde.
or
C'est pas lié à ça.
circumstances. It's not attached to
On se rend
that.
compte à travers,
We realize that through hardships in life.
Voilà, ça prend plus ou moins de temps.
Takes
Ça dépend.
more or less time, depending on.
Mais au final, tout ça, c'est pour notre bien.
But in the end, all of that is for
Quand on est
our
dedans, on s'en rend
own
pas
good.
forcément compte, mais
When we are going through it, we might not realize that, but afterwards we realize that it was perfect.
donc il est où l'espace sécuritaire?
So where is that safe place?
Ok, là.
All right, there,
Donc t'as pointé
in.
là. Tu
Okay,
me-
so
tu
you
me
point
montres
it
quoi,
there.
là?
So what are you pointing to when you show me that? Your body?
Ouais.
All right.
Le corps
But
il va disparaître.
The body will disappear, right?
Ok. Ouais. Ok.
In my own
Dans un
being
premier
then.
temps,
Oh, all right.
Le cheminement, on dit que ça va dans ce sens-là, effectivement.
We tend to
On
say
retourne
that
la
this
conscience vers elle-même, à la source,
path
et ça passe
goes
par le
this
corps.
way, right? Going through
Et
the
le corps
body.
est fait pour ça.
And the body is made
Le
for
corps,
that. That's
la
the main
conscience
purpose of this
On a
body.
fabriqué ce corps pour qu'on puisse
Consciousness fabricated this body
prendre
to
conscience de nous-mêmes en tant que conscience.
become
Ça,
aware
c'est
of
un
being
peu
consciousness,
étrange.
to be conscious of being consciousness. Might sound strange,
le
but
corps a ce sens-là.
that's the
Grâce au
very
corps, en fait,
meaning of the body.
On peut avoir un
Thanks
point de
to it,
focalisation, on peut se-
We can
on peut se
have a
recentrer. Et donc, du
point
coup,
of
faire
focalization, of focus.
des problèmes. Voilà. Ça, c'est la première étape en général. Ce qu'on commence à faire, c'est qu'on commence à aller chercher en soi. Effectivement, ça.
So we start with looking within us
on
at
traverse
first,
des couches.
and we go
Au
through
début, le bien-être physique.
layers.
Donc, on fait toutes sortes de choses pour le bien-être physique.
So we start with the well-being of the physical body,
Vous pouvez avoir
and
une super condition physique, mais le jour où vous avez un
we realize that it's not enough. We can have a great body, like a great physical health, and you can go through a hardship or an experience in life, and you realize that
faut creuser.
we need to dig a little bit
Jusqu'à ce que
deeper.
ça devienne de plus en plus difficile à sentir, parce que l'émotionnel, on peut le sentir. Il y a un lien entre le corps et l'émotionnel. Quand
There
on
is a
rentre
link
dans le mental,
between
ça commence à être un peu plus
emotion and body. It is linked. We can feel it. But when we come to the point of
En Inde, on dit
of
vous avez 10
thoughts,
pensées à la seconde.
it's harder to realize
Vous vous
that
en rendez pas compte, mais
those
là,
are objects.
vous êtes en train de conceptualiser. En arrière-plan, ça dit je suis un homme, il est telle heure, enfin il est en fin de journée, je suis à Angers. En arrière-plan, ça le dit en boucle. En fait.
Indian
Ça travaille en ce moment.
Hindus say that we have like 10 thoughts per second. So you are right now conceptualizing
C'est
all
des
the time.
concepts ajoutés.
All of that are concepts that are added to being.
Donc, le satsang, ce qu'on fait là,
And
ça
satsang,
veut dire le réel,
sat
sangha,
meaning
se
the
rassembler,
real, the
s'assembler
truth,
dans ce qui est
and
vrai.
sangha means gathering.
Bon, je le répète souvent, mais je le redis encore une fois. Pour les yogis, ce qui est vrai, c'est ce qui est permanent.
And
Ce qui est
to
stable,
yogis,
qui ne fluctue jamais.
what is true
Le
is
reste,
what's
pour les yogis,
permanent,
c'est considéré comme
what
pas
is never moving.
le réel
The
absolu.
rest,
Évidemment,
to
ce
yogis,
sangha est réel aussi, mais c'est pas
is not the
le
absolute
réel
truth.
absolu.
To yogis,
C'est
yep,
un
that's
long
not.
rêve. En fait, en réalité, ça paraît être réel, mais la vie humaine est un...
It appears to be
long rêve.
true, but
Et
the truth
c'est
is,
un rêve
this
tellement
life is,
fascinant
this world
pour la
is a
conscience
dream,
que
and it's so
on a
fascinating
complètement oublié
to
ce qu'on faisait avant.
consciousness that we
Laisse-moi faire
absolutely.
On a l'impression que là, cette vie-là, c'est vraiment ce qu'il y a de plus important.
It's so fascinating that consciousness forgets what we've been doing before, like the life before, and the life that what we're going to be doing after.
Et que l'univers entier se préoccupe de nos problèmes.
And we're so focused that we think we are the center of the universe. So our problems are very important, that our story is very important.
Donc, ce qui allège, c'est de se rendre compte que
What
la vie n'est pas personnelle.
light things up is to realize that life is not
C'est
personal, it's not my life, life is everywhere.
Et ça, on le sait très bien quand on est enfant, mais
We know it when we are
avec le temps.
children, while we are kids, and we tend to forget it with time,
On se prend au
but
sérieux, en fait. On prend notre histoire très au sérieux. On y croit fort.
we start believing in this story being very serious, and we believe in it very, very hard.
Parce qu'il y a peut-être des questions déjà.
You might have questions already?
Ouais, vas-y.
Tout de suite, là, c'est justement quand on commence à prendre conscience de cette dimension, on va dire, essentielle.
When we start noticing this essential
Comment vivre
dimension,
à la frontière entre le manifeste, parce que notre corps est ici,
how do you live right in between?
et notre âme est là, elle nous accompagne. Notre âme, c'est nous tous, nous accompagne. Vivre entre les deux, c'est être à cheval
So
assis entre deux chaises, on peut dire pratiquement.
it's being sitting in between two chairs, like the unmanifested and the soul. Yeah, keep going. You're doing good.
En fait, c'est que là, tu sépares encore, mais c'est normal.
You don't realize it. You're still separating
Quand on
at
est
the
dans le
moment.
parcours, on est encore
When
dans un
we are
processus où c'est
on the
encore,
path,
l'idée de moi qui fait un cheminement spirituel. Donc,
there's
on est
still
encore
this
dans
idea
l'histoire.
that I am someone
C'est encore
who's
l'histoire de moi,
having
le
this
moi spirituel.
spiritual path
Et
and
donc, il y a encore
this
des divisions
spiritual
à ce moment-là.
quest, and
Et tu
there are
comprends
still
pas,
some divisions, separations.
mon âme,
So you
et,
keep, so
le
you're still
monde.
talking about me and my soul and the
fait,
world, but
la
in
vie,
truth,
c'est
life
la même
is the
en
same
toi, dans le
in me,
monde. Et
in
le
the world,
manifeste et le non-manifeste, c'est la même
and
chose. Il y
the
a
manifest
pas de-
and the non-manifested. There's no separation. There's no difference.
Je sais que pour le mental, c'est pas évident.
So to the mind, it's quite hard to apprehend and to understand.
Réalise en fait, faut que tu réalises
You have to realize that
ce qui se tend en toi.
what is
Parce que être,
tensed
tu l'es.
in
La
you,
paix, tu l'es
being
déjà, en fait,
in
en
you,
réalité. C'est pour ça que
being
ça
you
s'atteint.
already are.
C'est
Sorry,
juste que l'éveil ne
peace
s'atteint pas, ça ne
is
s'atteint pas.
you
Ça
can't
peut pas
reach
s'atteindre parce que
awakening.
c'est ce que t'es déjà.
You can't reach it because you
Le
are
seul
already
truc,
that.
c'est qu'il y a
The only
sans
thing
arrêt
is there's always
des-
constantly
Bon, il y a des petits arrêts, mais on n'y prête pas attention souvent, mais il y a des tensions
there are
à
tensions
devenir, par exemple.
focused
Il y a
on
des
a
résistances
becoming
vis-à-vis de
or
quelque chose.
resistance to something
Ça,
that
c'est
is
forcément
here,
le mental.
and it has to be the
Le
mind.
mental, il est tout le temps
It's
avec je veux pas.
the mind is
Ça,
always
ça demande
about
plus que
what
ça.
I want and what I don't want. I want more
En
that,
permanence,
less of that.
il émet
It's
des concepts en
permanently
permanence. Même vis-à-vis d'une couleur, vis-à-vis d'une fleur, vis-à-vis d'un truc, La vie est innocente.
The mind is always issuing
mais le mental, il arrête
concepts,
pas tout le temps de
but life
catégoriser
has
en
never done
permanence.
anything to you.
Voilà,
The mind is
on
always
on
categorizing.
met des étiquettes sur la vie.
We
sans
put
arrêt.
tags on life all the time.
Mais c'est pas grave.
But that's
c'est
all
sa
right.
fonction aussi, au
It is the
mental.
function this mind.
Dans un état où il y a complètement absence du mental, on pourrait pas parler. On pourrait pas du tout communiquer parce que
In a state where there's
tu feras
absolutely
aucune
no
différence
mind, because
entre
we wouldn't be able
ton
to
mien
talk,
et
to
il y a besoin
share,
du mental pour qu'on puisse,
because you
s'aider.
wouldn't make any
La seule chose,
differences.
c'est que
So we need the mind to be able to
faut pas forcément prendre le
enjoy
mental
this
très au
life,
sérieux.
but
Quand il y a une
maybe not
résistance qui
take the
arrive,
mind so seriously,
bien
like
sûr,
resistance
faut voir,
or
clairement
tension.
que ça, c'est
Just see that
souvent des croyances
it's only,
limitantes,
well, most of the time it's
qui-
beliefs.
On se rend compte après. Quelques secondes après.
Oui, alors ça c'est le process.
Yeah, we tend to
Le chemin, c'est comme ça.
realize
En
or
général, ce qui
notice
se passe,
that a
c'est
few
qu'au
seconds
début,
after, but
on
well,
tombe
that's
dans
the
la résistance.
process
Et
of
puis,
it.
On s'en rend compte après, effectivement.
So first we tend to
Après,
fall into
avec
the
un peu
belief,
de
and then we
pratique,
realize
on
it
la voit
afterwards.
émerger,
With
on
a,
se dit que
with
j'ai
a bit
le
of
choix,
practice,
mais on tombe quand même.
we can see it
Après, on la
emerge,
voit émerger et
and
on
we
finit
still
par tomber. Et puis à la fin,
fall
ça-
into it.
ça émerge quasiment
then
plus.
you see it emerging,
Où il y a
and
une
you
telle
just
désidentification en fait que ça ne
you don't fall
ça ne
into
pose
it anymore.
aucun problème.
And after a while, it can still even emerge,
juste
and
un
it's so
mécanisme,
detached that you don't take notice of it. It's not.
Non, il n'y a plus de jugement.
There's no more judgment. Mm.
Il n'y a plus aucun jugement. Il n'y a plus aucun jugement. Et ça, je l'ai déjà dit déjà en satsang, mais la conscience est accueil inconditionnel et c'est vérifié
Consciousness is
dans l'instant.
an unconditional welcoming. Whatever you perceive
Il y a-
and
il y a
feel
pas,
is
ça se fait
welcomed by
tout de
consciousness. It's instant.
suite. Le seul truc, c'est qu'une
Instantaneous.
fraction de seconde après cet accueil,
And a fraction of a second after this welcoming, this
un
welcome,
événement arrive et là,
something happens,
le mental,
and
il va-
the mind,
c'est très rapide, mais
it's very,
il
very
va
fast and
effacer.
quick. But the
Ensuite,
mind
il va
goes
dans le
back to the
passé,
past,
il va comparer
com-
avec le
compares
passé,
with the
l'expérience
past,
qu'il a vécue,
with
et
whatever
ensuite, il
you're
va créer un jugement.
experiencing, and then it's going to
Par
create
exemple, vous voyez
a
une fraise,
judgment.
pouf, il va savoir
Like
que
you
vous
see
avez
a
déjà goûté
strawberry,
la fraise,
so it's going
et
to
il va
know that
savoir,
you've
même
already
par rapport à
tasted
l'allure de la fraise, il va
a
pouvoir dire si la fraise est
strawberry.
bonne ou pas, si elle est vraiment mûre ou
And
pas.
from
Et
the
tout ça,
shape
ça
of
se
it,
fait
it's gonna
instantanément, en fait.
be able to say if it's a
Mais
good
pour la
shape or if
conscience,
it's a bad shape.
il y a
And
juste,
but to
une
consciousness,
fraise, en fait. Il y a aucun concept.
there's not even
Il y
a
a
strawberry.
juste, pure
There's no
vibration.
concepts.
Donc, parce
There's
qu'en fait,
just
on est dans
pure
une vibration.
vibrations,
Il y a juste des couleurs.
because that's the truth
que
of
vous
it.
trouvez très belle parce que quand vous arrêtez de conceptualiser la vibration,
There's only
tout est beau.
colors,
Et ça passe
and
ça passe
that
par la
is
tête, ça passe par
a
le
gorgeous
cœur.
color, because if you don't conceptualize a color and you go through the heart,
Quand on est dans la conscience, il y a
everything
plus
becomes beautiful.
le mental qui catégorise.
So when
Il y a
you
juste,
recognize yourself as consciousness, there's an openness, and there's no more mind that is conceptualizing.
Avec, avec n'importe quoi.
It can happen with a strawberry, but it happened to me with a shoe.
Pour la conscience, il n'y a pas de différence.
You just,
Il n'y a pas de frontière.
there's no difference, there's
Selon le
no
regard que
borders.
vous avez, tout peut être beau.
Depending on
Le
the
beau, en fait, c'est
way
vraiment ce
of
que vous
looking
êtes.
at
Donc,
things,
vous reconnaissez, comme tout est
everything
conscience.
becomes beautiful, gorgeous, because you recognize yourself.
Mais
You
c'est une
see
question de-
beauty.
C'est une question de regard, en fait, de regard ou de non-regard, toi tu dirais. Parce que c'est pas un regard avec le mental, c'est
pas un regard conceptuel.
It's all
c'est pas un
about,
regard conceptuel. Mm.
C'est pour ça qu'on dit aussi.
It's
que
not
le
a
regard,
conceptual
c'est le regard.
look or looking. It's a non-conceptual, so it's a non-looking in a way.
Enfin, pour moi, ça reste plus facile dans le regard d'un bébé ou d'un enfant ou dans un regard où on sent que l'âme est, je dirais entre guillemets, plus pure. Enfin,
Ouais, ça c'est normal.
That's-
Parce que là, il n'y a pas de.
I
Avec le
I
bébé,
see
il y a
what
pas de
you're talking
concept.
about in baby's gaze
La pure
or
conscience,
look.
il y a la présence de la pure conscience telle
It
qu'elle, il
is
n'y a pas de filtre, il n'y a rien.
consciousness
Pas d'opacité. Donc c'est normal.
without
C'est
filters,
pas tout à
without
fait le
any
regard, en fait.
opacity.
On perçoit
But that's
plutôt
not really the
la pure
gaze.
conscience, en fait. Le regard,
We're
c'est
just
un phénomène, j'allais dire un phénomène.
we're just perceiving pure consciousness
C'est quelque
there.
chose de beaucoup plus vaste. Donc en fait, c'est la conscience.
Consciousness is just not just a
Que tu
gaze.
reconnais aussi en
It's
toi.
just
Donc, c'est plus
you.
facile avec un
In the end, it's just you recognizing yourself as consciousness. That's what happens. Yeah, still living that with a shoe, it's a bit,
Non, mais
it's a bit
raison.
far-fetched
En fait,
for me.
pourquoi? Parce
I know what you mean.
que ça soit
Because
des êtres
should it be
vivants ou des objets non animés,
alive
c'est toujours la
objects
même
or
pure conscience.
inanimate
D'accord?
objects,
Il y a
it's
que le
still the same
concept,
consciousness.
j'appelle ça le binôme mentalo-égotique qui fait en fait,
There's,
qui essaye en fait de
it's
se
only the
séparer
mind and the
en disant,
ego
ah bah non, ça,
that
tu peux le
try
vivre
that
que
try
avec des
to
êtres qui sont
separate,
incarnés
and it's
physiquement.
going to tell you that you can only live that with animate objects, alive objects, but that's absolutely not true. You can live and go through ecstatic experiences even with inanimate objects that we think that they are non-conscious, but consciousness is composing it. It's objects are made of it. So there's a story about a yogi in India practicing an intense sadhana, and he had lots of comprehensions, but still self-realization wasn't there, and there was just one blade of grass in his backyard. So he kept on looking at it. It was quite insignificant to him. There was a lot of pride, having gone through experiences. And by looking at this blade of grass, he reached grace, really. It can happen with... It happened to you with a match, right? Yes. Yeah. The first time it was a match. So it can happen with anything. There's no more limits, no more borders. That's only the mind and the ego that create those differences, those conditions, but there's no such thing as conditions and borders. Consciousness is everywhere, even in a shoe. The mechanism that happens is, without realizing it, while looking at a baby, it creates in you, not everyone, but in you, there's a heart opening. You're in full opening, that you recognize yourself and you recognize the baby at the same time. It's you that is creating that. It's because you open yourself like that it happens. Same with people coming to a master, to meditate. I feel like, when I'm with you, I feel this and that, but in truth, they are doing the opening themselves. So to some, it won't be a baby. To some, it's going to be clouds or landscapes or... But now, if you were looking at things as a baby, like a one-day-old baby, and you would see like flashy pink, it would create something quite deep in you, quite ecstatic. It does happen often with babies because they are this purity, this. It does move pretty much everyone when you see a baby. In this moment, if we are welcoming enough, then you will have this inner realization. It's already there, but still, thanks to the baby, it could happen instantly. There's also the fact that it's communicating in a quantic way, let's say. There's an intuition in you how the baby is apprehending the world, and the baby is in a state of awakening. So and you reach, or not reach, but you connect to that way of seeing things, and that's because there's no mind in the baby. That's why. Yeah. And that's also why the baby can allow someone to have that kind of experience, because there's no mind to resist anything. There's no mind in animals? Yes, there is. a mind, a simpler mind, less concepts.
Il utilise
But yes,
différemment.
it's used differently.
Je ne sais pas s'il y a une réponse, mais bon, je pose quand même la question. En fait, je vous ai écouté pour la première fois cet après-midi.
I've listened to you for the first time this afternoon,
Et vous disiez qu'il y avait des allers-retours entre.
and you said that there were back and forth movements between ecstatic states and depression, and I'm right in the middle of that. Okay.
Et en fait, je me demandais
And I was wondering why
pourquoi en fait est-ce que ça doit prendre 10 ans, 15 ans chez une personne.
why does it take 15 years, 10 years for someone? Why do we have to go through those
C'est pas une obligation.
ecstatic, extreme states?
Ça peut prendre aucun temps. Enfin, ça peut
It
être
can
instantané.
doesn't have to. It can be instantaneous.
Oui, la plupart du temps, ça prend ce temps-là.
Most of the time, it takes that time. Yes, it takes that amount of time. Is it a choice? Is it a choice of mine?
Oui, tout est choisi, hein, c'est sûr.
In a way, you could say that everything is chosen. Yes,
Mais la
but
mécanique
it's
est simple,
just
hein,
consciousness.
c'est très simple.
That is. But the mechanism is quite simple. Is why do we go through ecstatic state to depression? And yesterday, while meditating, a student was. It was her fourth
Et donc, je lui ai dit avant
lesson,
qu'elle quitte la porte, enfin qu'elle sorte, je lui ai dit.
and she had an ecstatic state. And when she was leaving, I told her, try not to grab onto that. Try not to come back to that state afterwards, because you're going to have a big depression coming up.
La dépression vient du fait qu'il y a une tension.
Depression comes from the fact that there's a
On
tension.
se met tout le temps en dehors de soi-même. C'est pour ça qu'on
We keep on putting ourselves outside of ourselves. We project ourselves in a better, in a longer, in the future.
Plus de mieux, plus de ailleurs.
And when we stop doing that, like, elsewhere, better,
Voilà, tout est accueilli.
and when everything is
Il y a pas
welcome,
de- C'est quand il n'y a plus de désir pour autre chose que ce qui est. Il n'y a plus besoin d'autre chose.
then
Donc,
this
quand il y a
is-
plus de
this
désir
is-
pour autre chose, eh ben, il y a plus de frustration. Il y a
there's no more frustration when there's no wish or desire for anything else, no tension for something
plus de peur
else.
non plus, parce que la peur, c'est le désir de
There's no more fear, because fear is the desire of not suffering, the wish of not suffering.
C'est aussi simple que ça. c'est
It's
juste
as
arrêter de-
simple
de
as that,
s'étendre
is stopping
vers
to
un état, un
to
ressenti,
stop
quelque
and
chose.
to
Je
tense
dirais,
yourself.
la
Or,
réalisation, l'éveil n'a rien à voir avec un ressenti. C'est
like
pas-
I said, realization has nothing to do with a feeling.
Mais les croyances, on a vu
But
dur, hein, parce qu'il y a pas
beliefs,
encore longtemps, il y a
like
quelqu'un qui
old
m'a dit,
habits
qui
die
m'a dit,
hard.
non, mais tu sais, l'éveil n'a rien à voir avec la
I told someone,
l'expérience de lumière et tout.
Kundalini has nothing to do with awakening. Well, I'm not that sure. Well, believe whatever you want, but
Si tu veux, bah là, tu peux t'en prendre pour 10 ans. Si tu
but
veux,
you can go through 10 years of suffering if you keep on believing that he's.
C'est en fait dans l'attente de certains états. Donc c'est des phénomènes.
Because without realizing it, you are starting to wait for states, and those are objects.
Donc du
So
coup, tu te fais attraper par ça, mais tu le vois pas forcément venir. Donc ça peut durer un
You
certain
are
temps. Et puis,
grabbed
tu sais,
by
c'est,
that,
quelque
and-
part, ton ego, ton mental te fait
and
croire que c'est
your
merveilleux,
ego
c'est féerique. Du coup,
makes you
bah,
believe that it
tu
is
te sens bien
wonderful,
aussi, quelque
it's
part, ça déclenche un peu d'adrénaline, enfin tout un tas de choses.
marvelous, and there's
Tu te fais
all
attraper
sorts
sans
of,
pouvoir
of
venir.
adrenaline
Et ça le
or.
fait pour plein de gens, ça. Sauf que ça dure pas forcément. Il y a des prises de conscience après, et on finit par s'en détacher. En fait,
So it can go on for quite a while, going attached to those ecstatic states, but at some point you start to realize that it's
dans la réalisation ultime et absolue,
in
il y a
the
plus d'état
absolute
d'expérience.
realization.
Pourquoi? Parce que c'est être.
There's no more
Et
more
être, c'est pas une expérience puisque c'est ta nature.
experiences,
T'as
no
besoin
more
d'expérimenter,
states.
en fait, parce que tu
It
es-
is your absolute true nature, and it's permanent.
Et ça fluctue pas.
It doesn't fluctuate.
J'ai l'impression d'avoir dépassé en fait la recherche d'expérience et de
I think that I've gone through this need of experiences.
juste parfait.
I know that everything is perfect, but
J'ai juste envie que tout soit simple.
I just want things to be simple.
Mais c'est une envie.
But that's a desire there.
C'est ça ton problème. c'est que
That's
tu as
your
envie.
problem. You have a desire.
Mais par contre, quand tu parles de simplicité, c'est ça, sauf qu'il ne faut pas mettre envie à côté.
But when you talk about this simplicity, that's it. But just take away the desire for it.
Tu es dans une dualité.
You're still in a duality there. When this desire is seen, you'll see that simplicity is what's left.
Pas de vivre des épreuves, des trucs durs qui t'arrivent seulement.
Doesn't prevent you from, going through hard experiences. And yeah,
Mais c'est simple quelque
Tout à fait.
part.
Tout à fait.
but there's a simplicity to it.
Ce
Yes.
qui est intéressant, c'est en plus quand tu.
And what's interesting is those hardships.
Sans rajouter au bout, c'est dur. c'est
Ouais.
compliqué.
Without adding, like those hardships, without adding this idea of, hard or difficult. If you go up to the point of the quintessence of things, there's nothing wrong.
On appelle dans
Voilà.
notre état de base.
Mais
This is what we
en
call
fait, vivre quelque
hardships,
chose,
but yeah,
c'est
yes.
encore,
But living
se séparer
something,
quelque part de la vie.
it's
En fait,
in a way
tu
is
viens
still
de ce que tu es la
being
vie. Donc, t'as
separated
besoin
from
de
life because you don't live anything. You are life itself.
Et on a souvent la peur, moi souvent quand je fais des satsangs ou autres,
We often have this
la
fear
réalisation
that
ultime et absolue,
in this
elle est pas dans une
absolute
expérience
realization,
d'état, et les gens me disent,
and
on n'existe plus alors.
which is not a state, there's no experiences, then there's this fear that, but we don't exist anymore. But
Mais en fait,
what is
c'est
it
des croyances encore.
that
C'est
you
vraiment
think
encore
is
de l'ordre de la croyance.
existing?
Donc la clé, j'allais dire,
And people
la
can't
suprême clé, la
tell me
puissance,
anything about it because they don't know. But those are just
nous,
experiences.
tout ce capable de faire, c'est de tout accueillir.
So
Sans
the-
poser
the-
dessus ni jugement, ni critique,
The key
aucun
is to accept and welcome everything without any judgment,
événement
without any
qui
critique.
semble se présenter
So
au sein
here's
de la conscience.
an event that is appearing,
Tu vois, on s'en occupe pas.
apparently
On s'assied
appearing.
dessus. On l'accueille.
It's just we welcome it without putting any words on it.
Ça se fait tout seul, c'est spontané.
But a yogi does
C'est
make
spontané.
choices, right? Now it's spontaneous. It happens spontaneously.
L'oiseau qui fait son nid ne se
The
pose pas de
bird
question
that
de choix.
is,
C'est spontané.
creating
La
his
fleur qui
nest
pousse,
doesn't
fleurit,
think
sans se
or
poser de question de choix.
there's no choice in it, like a flower that is blossoming, there's no choice in it.
Ah ouais, ouais, un éveillé peut paraître n'importe quoi aux yeux du monde. Même
So
même
yes,
un
and then
éveillé
enlightened
peut
people
paraître ne pas du tout être éveillé.
Carrément.
can appear as not enlightened, yeah, or appear as absolutely crazy,
Ouais.
yeah, absolutely.
Ouais.
Tout à
If
fait.
they want to go out of the room without an explanation, it's. So, is it a bit isolating? Like awakening does isolate you.
Ça dépend pour qui.
Depends for
En fait,
For
c'est pas
who?
son instinct.
it's not
C'est
it's
c'est le courant de la vie qui s'exprime.
it's not a
naturellement.
choice that is making, it's the spontanéité of life that
Il n'y a
is
pas de scénario
expressing itself.
établi.
There's no
forcément,
scenario.
c'est fait dans l'instant.
It just happens.
Ultra intime, en fait,
So it's very intimate.
peut pas vivre avec les autres.
Enlightened people can't live with others.
Si.
Yes?
Les autres, quoi.
Il n'y a pas de souci.
No, there's no trouble with that.
Non,
Si j'arrive pas à comprendre ce qui te pose vraiment
I
problème.
can't really grasp what's your problem there. It's the idea of choice. We welcome everything, right?
Quand il y a quelque chose qui est. Pas un yogi, il a
For instance, does a yogi welcome a punch in the face, or does he crossroad?
Il se pose pas la question,
Doesn't think about
Ça
it.
dépend de ce qui va se passer dans l'instant.
Depends on what's going to
il n'y a
happen
pas de
in
scénario
the moment.
établi, préconstruit.
There's no scenario
Il est ni dans le passé,
written.
en train de préparer quelque chose, ni dans le futur, de ce-
It's not in
c'est
the
vraiment
past preparing something. It's not in the future. It's just now. For your yogi, a yogi. It's always now.
toujours maintenant.
Always
Il y a
now.
pas de différent- il y a pas- en fait, l'entourage ne s'en rend pas compte. Enfin,
People
ne s'en rend
around
pas forcément compte.
around you might not realize that.
Elle devine des choses, elle ressent des
My
choses,
mom
mais elle s'en rend pas forcément compte.
doesn't realize that it's
Oui,
well.
elle
She
est
does
consciente, mais ce que je veux
capture
dire, c'est que
things, but
la vie continue
she's not
de
fully
circuler.
conscious.
Le rôle du personnage continue.
Life
Sauf que
keeps
tu sais
on
que t'es pas le
going.
personnage, toi. Tu vois,
You
le
just realize that you're not
Voilà.
this
Tu joues
character.
ton rôle, mais tu as pleinement conscience.
So
de
you
jouer un rôle.
play the
T'as
part,
pleinement
but
conscience
you're
d'être la
fully
conscience
conscious
en
that
train de-
your
consciente d'elle-même, en train de
consciousness
jouer le rôle
playing a character, playing the role of a character. So you play all the time. You know it's not you.
C'est vrai qu'on cherche toujours. En fait, on est éveillé, puis
On est déjà éveillé.
We all already enlightened,
C'est
yes.
ce qu'on ajoute.
That's what we add on.
On
That
crée tout un tas de choses en fait.
Ouais.
Ça sert à rien, c'est être.
being is being,
Ne pas être de toute façon.
and you can't not be, so it's not possible. So
En fait, on joue ou on laisse jouer?
Non, on joue parce que c'est
we
moi la
play or we let play. No, we play
conscience
because
qui joue.
I'm the consciousness playing.
C'est moi la conscience qui fait bouger les
I'm the consciousness making leaves
C'est moi la conscience
move.
en ce
I'm the
moment.
consciousness.
C'est moi la
I'm
conscience qui fait
consciousness
bouger
making the clouds move
les choses.
right now.
C'est moi qui suis toi en ce moment.
And I'm
De se poser des questions sur le
I am
respect.
being you. I am the one being you. Asking questions about myself, which is quite funny.
Mais en fait, ouais, c'est très très simple. C'est juste dans
It's
maintenant.
very simple
qu'est-ce qui
now.
résiste à
What's
juste être? C'est la seule
resisting
question à
to
poser.
just being?
Qu'est-ce que j'accueille
What is
pas,
the
en fait?
resistance to it? What is
C'est ça
not?
qui fait que je suis pas en paix.
welcome.
Il y a des choses que j'accueille pas.
That's the reason we're not at peace, because there are things that are
Qu'est-ce
not
qui fait que
welcomed.
je sens un manque ou qu'est-ce qui fait que je me sens séparé?
Why is there
Satisfaire, regardez,
the idea that there's something
vous
missing?
allez
Why am
voir
I
que c'est
unsatisfied? And if
C'est
you
que
go
des
all the
croyances.
way through it, you'll see that
Croyances,
those
fondées,
are just beliefs, unfounded,
prises, ouais, c'est-
learned beliefs.
Donc, c'est juste enlever ouais,
Take away all those
enlever ce qui est en
concepts. Take away what's too much, in a way. So we've been removed or distanced from all that. Well, we do play with ourselves. This is just consciousness playing. So we arrive as children, being pure,
Oui, enfin, on se laisse. Enfin, ça fait partie du jeu.
and we get conditioned. Well, it's part of the game.
Parce pas, on nous a éloignés,
Well,
c'est
it's
notre
not that
point de
we
vue,
have
parce que Dieu
been
nous a éloignés,
we have been
tu vas
distanced,
pouvoir
because
nous-
if you say that, then you're going to be angry at the whole world. It's just
Faut être
you
déconjoué,
as consciousness playing. It's
Pour mieux revenir à qui on est, hein, de toute façon.
it's
Ouais.
made so that we can come back to what we really are.
Un yogi, s'il emménage dans une maison, et que
If a yogi move into a house,
un mec passionné de marteau-piqueur qui s'installe
and if there's someone that is passionate about jackhammers,
un marteau-piqueur à se coller à l'oreille.
Ça tombe bien, c'était l'objet du cours de méditation d'hier.
funny, that's exactly the
On a médité sur
point
le
of
corps hier.
Ça tombe bien.
meditation lesson yesterday.
Ça te sent qu'il y avait cette histoire-là, justement, avec.
I did the satsang a few days ago, and it was the same.
On observe, on médite sur le corps, mais quand ça dure 6 mois, ou 2 ans, ou 50 ans, à un moment donné, le yogi, il accepte pas.
Yeah, but you're talking about meditation like a few minutes. But let's say that the yogi lives for 20 years nearby this jackhammer. Well,
T'es la conscience
the
absolue,
impulse
t'es
might
pas obligé,
also be
tu
to
peux partir
move from the house.
la vie
You're not
prendra son
limited.
temps. Moi j'ai quitté Paris, je suis parti sans rien.
I left Paris without anything.
Tu quittes ou bien tu restes et puis tu décides, je sais pas
Oui,
pourquoi.
en fait, il peut se passer des milliers de choses. Ouais.
Anything can happen.
Tout à fait. Mais
Il y
là,
a une infinité de scénarios.
Je suis le marteau-piqueur,
There's infinity of scenarios.
je me mets à l'aimer, quoi.
Oui, mais cela dit, enfin, honnêtement, pour répondre à ta question clairement,
To answer your
ça
question,
ne ferait pas un pli de méditer avec un marteau-piqueur à côté.
it wouldn't
Je peux méditer avec du
trouble me
métal,
in
mais
meditating
vraiment,
with a jackhammer nearby, or I've been meditating for hours with metal music in my ears.
tu as une petite bête, hein.
Ouais. Je vais te poser une question.
I have a question for you.
Quel que soit ce qui arrive dans le monde,
Whatever happens in the
ce qui
world,
t'arrive,
what
ça
happens to
change
you,
quelque chose au fait d'être.
does it change the fact that you are? No, that's clear, yes.
Je ne parle même pas de serein, c'est est-ce que être
Is
est impacté.
being impacted?
Donc ça change rien.
No, it's not. So it doesn't change anything that there's noise or not.
Être est toujours là. Être est
Being
toujours
is
le
always
même.
there,
Maintenant est
always
toujours
the
le même
same.
et n'est pas
Now is
impacté.
always the same, and it's
Le
not
problème,
impacted. Problem is humans mistake the container and the content. Like the content becomes very important, and we forget about the container, consciousness, in which everything appears, and it's never impacted. Being is never impacted. I know what you mean. If I stab you, but is being impacted if I get stabbed or if I stab you? No. But there's something hard to get there intellectually, yes. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be you're not going to feel pain, but it's not going to be lived the same way as in, it's my pain because I believe in my story very, very strongly. Pain can be welcome. Sadness can be welcome. So, ultimate realization, there's no more dissonance. Yes, it's all equanimous. But to come back to this yogi and the jackhammer, there was a yogi, I think he was German, at Les Halles in Paris, was always meditating. That's called it's called the zone because it's, there's gangsters coming by or it's quite troubled place. And he was meditating right in the middle of that. And imperturbable, not unimpacted. And there are others that train themselves. If you are so the important thing is to realize that all your senses are inner senses, like internalized. So through practice, they realize that everything is internalized, that all the noises are within themselves, so they're not disturbed by anything anymore. And they can do that, that training for years and all around the year, and everything is possible. You don't have to do that, but those are the austerities called tapas in India. All the mystics and saints, and where they make themselves in uncomfortable places or states. It's to help find this space that is not impacted. It's just a game, yeah. Yeah, it's called tapas.
Et c'était très intéressant hier je vous conseille de le faire ça d'ailleurs, faites-le chez vous, prenez différents types de musique, même des trucs hardcore.
Yeah, that is an advice I could give you. Try and listen, meditate with different kinds of music.
Posez-vous les questions.
Ask yourself the question.
Est-ce que, par exemple, je sais pas, il y a plusieurs façons de faire. Est-ce qu'il y a une distance entre le son?
Is there a distance in between this sound and me?
Est-ce que j'arrive à percevoir ce qui entend la musique?
Can I perceive what is perceiving, listening this music, and is it affected by anything really?
Donc voilà, il y a des exercices qu'on peut faire comme ça.
There are exercises you can do like that. And music is interesting because it activates emotional contractions in you. It's a good way to discover all the patterns and programs that we have within ourselves. And most of the time, people need a bit of time to comprehend, understand how we act, how we work, function it. And it's a good thing to realize that we're not really responsible for anything in life. I mean, can you tell me when is your next thought gonna arise and what kind of thought it's going to be, you won't be able to tell me. And because if you don't choose your thoughts, then you're not responsible for what happens in your life. What I find a bit disturbing is that we have to get rid of this mind by using the mind. Well, yes and no. Yes, because in the surface looks like there's words happening, but there's something else happening. Same with the baby. It's the presence talking to presence. That's why it's a satsang. But you can use the mind to exceed some space, mindless space. So the mind is quite useful in the end. Yeah, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, in front of hardships, and as long as we're still spontaneous and we don't have this mind analyzing this event or hardship, or there's an those events are some sort of message to us. So if we keep on going without analyzing or mentalizing, then how can we learn from those experiences? If you don't need to mentalize and analyze. Those comprehensions happen on a more subtle level, beyond the mind. Sometimes someone asks me, if I live an emotion, how do I mentalize? How do I understand it? Don't do it. As soon as you're in the mind, you'll have trouble welcoming anything, really. So, and about what am I going to be, or what's going to happen to me, that's the mind talking there. But if you have trust, if you trust life, then you'll have everything. It's abundance that is going to arise. Whatever you want, you will have. But we're not alone, like we have families, or. But you have to take that into account, that you have a wife and kids. So you have to analyze what's happening and think about the future for you and your family, right? What I mean is this spontaneity. You can feel what you're drawn towards, but behind it, there is an analyzing. How is it gonna impact the rest of my life? And that's the mind is that's the mind that is here for that. But you've given your own response to yourself. You said you feel drawn towards. So the mind is just a logistic part of whatever happens. But the answer always comes from the heart.
Oui, aussi. Et après,
ça concerne uniquement la densité, le charnel, le relatif, c'est tout. Même avec la femme, les enfants et tout.
When you're talking about, it's just in relation to.
Après, à vous d'en discuter entre vous pour que ça résonne entre vous ici.
What's the density of manifestation, even with
Il y a un oui ici.
The invite is for all of you to talk about everything together, and that this discussion comes from the heart. What is the substance of an emotion? What is the nature of an emotion? It's vibration. It's consciousness and vibration. That's the very core of. Anything to add? No.
De toute façon, tout est conscience.
Everything is
La moindre
consciousness.
pensée que vous pouvez avoir, si vous ne restez pas focalisé dessus, comme une simple pensée, c'est aussi pure conscience. Tout est pure conscience de toute façon.
Everything is absolutely pure consciousness. Whatever thoughts,
Ça,
if you don't stay attached to it.
C'est quand même une pensée qui correspond à notre passé,
So it's
le plus souvent.
most of the time it's always a thought that is linked to our past, yeah, or the future.
Par exemple, souvent c'est futur.
Like if you have anxieties, most of the time it's about the future.
Ça correspond à toujours au moi personnel.
It always corresponds to a little me, the relative.
Les émotions, c'est toujours.
Emotions are always linked to a character and a story.
J'ai comme l'impression qu'il prend trop de place.
Voilà, c'est une impression. C'est une impression.
On nourrit tout ça, quoi.
On croit qu'on nourrit tout ça en fait, mais on peut sortir de ça.
So we feed all that story. We think that we believe that we feed it, but we can get out of it.
On peut sortir de ça.
We're not really in it because we're playing. It's not true, so we can get out of it. In the end, we don't have to get
C'est vrai. Ça veut pas dire que.
to ask a wife or a kid,
N'importe quoi.
and we can do anything that we want in the end, whatever we want to do. We don't care for.
Du
Yeah,
point de vue de la conscience absolue,
absolutely.
ça veut rien
Doesn't mean that's going to happen to you, but from the perspective of consciousness, anything can happen. Doesn't matter.
Même ça, c'est au-delà
So
de
you
ça.
mean as long as we don't go against universal laws, we can do whatever we want? Well, there's no such thing as universal laws. It's beyond that.
Un concept humain.
It still can be a human concept to say that there are universal laws.
T'es totalement libre. Mais
You
vraiment,
are absolutely free, totally free.
Ça va loin parce que
It can go. It goes quite far.
un psychopathe,
A psychopath,
les gens en tranches,
cutting someone in layers and in
essayer de vivre des gens comme ça.
bits and pieces.
vivre des gens. Vivre le psychopathe.
So you can't let someone like that live.
Dans le sac à dos.
Yeah, bits and pieces in a backpack, right?
Et voilà, on peut pas. C'est vrai que c'est très difficile, mais je disais oui, mais tu juges.
Yes, it is difficult. It is hard, but you are judging there. This is what I was telling my friend. You're judging.
Tu juges que c'est mal. Lui, peut-être que.
You're judging that it's wrong to do that, but it's a judgment.
C'est vrai que c'est aberrant de dire des choses comme ça.
I know that it's
Ouais.
it's disturbing to be saying that. It can appear as disturbing, yes, but
Pourtant, être,
And yet
être
being
chez le psychopathe et être chez toi est le
in
même.
this psychopath and being in you is the same. Imagine you're in deep sleep and you've got a psychopath lying next to you.
Ce que je veux dire, c'est que ça change rien.
It doesn't change anything. Nothing is fluctuating.
Le grand saint, le psychopathe et toi,
Put
en sommeil profond,
yourself,
d'un
a
côté,
saint
l'autre,
and a
la conscience
psychopath
absolue,
in deep
toujours
sleep
dans les
next to each
trois,
others.
quatre personnes. Et
To consciousness, it's
c'est au
not
moment où il y a l'apparition
different.
du mental,
There's nothing
qui est
different.
dysfonctionnel,
It's
là,
as soon as the mind appears more or less dysfunctional that you're gonna.
et encore ça pourrait
It's
même être un jugement.
even though dysfunctional might appear as a judgment, but it's just to say that it's a different way of
Dans
acting.
le sens de trouver ou de réaliser qui l'on est. Le mental
The mind tends to
c'est ça, c'est que le mental a tendance, il est dysfonctionnel dans le sens où il focalise sur ce qui n'est pas
focus.
toi.
That's to what is not you. That's what I mean by dysfunctional.
Toi, c'est le corps, c'est mon histoire.
So
je suis
it
dans un
tends
temps,
to tell you
je
that
suis né, j'ai vécu
you
un temps et un
are this
espace, etc.,
body
etc.
and you were born, that you need an identity.
Ouais.
J'ai fait ça, j'ai pas sous stress.
C'est tout un tas de choses comme ça, il y en a à foison.
Ça veut dire que dans le cas du psychopathe et de la victime, on peut aussi imaginer que les deux l'ont choisi.
So, in the case of a psychopath and its victim, can we imagine that they both chose it in a way?
Tout à fait.
Yeah.
Ça peut déranger, ouais.
Yeah, I know it's quite challenging to hear that, but yeah.
Bah, tu sais, des fois, les gens sont. On a eu une discussion l'autre jour, on était tout un groupe et à un moment donné.
We were talking a few days ago with friends,
Confession juive et la discussion sur Hitler est venue.
and we were talking with Jews. Some of them were Jews, and we were talking about Hitler.
Mais tout est parti, quoi. Il y avait tout qui est sorti. Et tout ça.
So
Et il y a
everything
quelqu'un qui
burst.
dit, oui, mais tu crois en Dieu alors.
So
La question, elle dit, bah, oui.
friend was telling to another, so you believe in God? So do you have like a great faith in God?
Dire que Dieu, alors, il est
Then
absent.
yes, I do. Then you can't say that God is absent from Hitler. You know, it's.
Mais bon, elle a eu une-
And the other friend, she was,
comme elle avait eu des membres de sa famille qui
she
étaient contre ça.
members from her family were in the camps. So and she was carrying that, and she authorized herself, allowed herself to drop it just for a few minutes.
Là, elle a pu accueillir le fait que
She was able to welcome the idea that
je sois en cohérence avec ma.
I need to be coherent with my faith. So
Dieu
if
sont toutes choses, et en toute
if I'm coherent, then God is in everything and everyone, so it is in Hitler. But then she, grabbed back those baggage, and
Mais ça,
you know,
ça ne dérange,
but
ça ne dérange en vérité,
it was great.
Ou ça ne semble déranger que le mental, l'ego, quoi. Parce que
There's only the ego and the mind that can be disturbed and challenged by that.
ça ne change rien.
The absolute is not disturbed by that. That's this.
Non.
Donc il ne faut pas être effrayé par toutes ces horreurs qu'on voit.
So there's no need to be frightened by all those horrors that we're seeing in the world.
Les citoyens, c'est un peu compliqué. Comme on est dans toutes choses,
Since we are in everything,
de se dire qu'on est à la fois ce monde,
that we are one.
cet ange, c'est vrai que
Mais
c'est une réalité aussi, mais en même temps,
même quand tu dis,
on est toujours dans le mental encore.
quand tu dis monstre, tu vois, ange.
When you talk about angels and monsters, those are ideas, concepts, judgments, definitions.
Si on acceptait tout, on ne devrait pas s'en inquiéter de tout ce qui se passe à l'extérieur.
Tout à fait.
Dire, bon, bah,
Tout à
c'est
fait.
normal.
Bah oui, parce que
So we
ce qui est à
shouldn't-
l'extérieur est à l'intérieur aussi.
So we shouldn't get bothered by all that because everything outside is inside, and fear is irrational. Absolutely,
Se détacher de tout ça.
we need to detach from that.
Regarde
Yeah,
qui a peur.
but look at who is afraid.
Tu vas toujours revenir au personnage. À chaque fois
Keep
qu'il y a une
you'll keep
souffrance,
coming back to
ça
this
va
character, to
toujours
this
te ramener
little
à
me.
moi, le
D'être connu,
And every time you ask
Et puis tu diras, moi,
who is, you'll see that
peut-être ton
there's
prénom.
always this me, that is experiencing things.
Parce qu'en réalité, quand tu vois un psychopathe découper des gens,
But the truth is, when you see a psychopath cutting people into pieces in his, carrying them in the backpack,
direct,
what happens is that you're identifying, and you think, well, if I was cut in pieces in the backpack, then I would be. That's. So there's no need to be worried because we are immortal.
pas seulement être.
Yeah, but it needs to be realized. You need to be really aware of it. Yeah. So.
sur cette terre pour un passage, et puis on
So we are immortal, and we are here to, have fun, and so we don't need to be afraid. Yeah, it needs to be. You need to be conscious about it.
Ah non, ça change.
Truly.
Ça ne sauve pas celui qui a tué,
Ça change
ça
rien.
lui apporte rien du tout. Par contre, nous, ça nous apporte du mauvais.
Pas du mauvais, mais
On en rajoute.
disons.
Enfin,
Voilà.
dans l'ego, je veux dire,
Tout à fait,
dans
tout à
l'ego,
fait.
le mental, ça rajoute de la souffrance.
Encore des croyances, quoi.
Oui.
Mais quelque part, si on s'en inquiétait pas, le gars il courrait toujours, ça peut nous
Non.
arriver à nous, quoi.
Non, tu peux pas.
Ça paraît
Tu peux
gamin,
pas.
tu vois.
But if we weren't worried about
Ah oui, quelqu'un-
things like that, then this psychopath would still be running, for instance.
Enfin, j'ai un problème grave aux hanches et tout ça, et si je suis la conscience, je peux laisser faire, etc.
I remember a friend telling me, I've got.
En fait, tu peux pas. Je lui ai dit, vas-y pour voilà, juste un instant, essaie de te dire que tu vas laisser faire, laisse ton corps complètement. Et il peut
His-
pas. Pourquoi? Parce que
He's having trouble with his hips, and he says that, well, if I'm consciousness, then I can let it be like that. Well, and I said to him, well, try it, just And you'll see that life is taking care of life. Imagine you're at a crossroad and you see a kid that is about to cross the road and about to get hit by a car. And I remember while being in Quebec. And they I was with friends who had big trucks, and well, not trucks, but big cars and pickups. And on the road there was a raccoon, and my friend actually made movement to avoid the raccoon, even though it was dead on the road. So life is kind of. So about the psychopath, then someone else is gonna, the police is gonna run after him, or so it's spontaneously taking care of itself. But there's also something important to understand, that we're not the savior of this world. This is something that I didn't understand at first. Why did enlightened people didn't run around telling people, trying to save people? And I understand now why. When you're one with life, that you know that you're life, then everything is cool, everything is all right, and you know that life does perfectly. So doesn't mean that we don't do anything. So we're still life. So this current drives us, but life does spontaneously. We're so not conscious about that. The whole body that is moving, this force that we wake up in the morning without even an alarm clock. The force that makes us not wake up in the morning. The force that makes us stay in bed. Yeah, that's another option, absolutely. So what about dreams? So if we dream, does that mean that we still have an ego? Are you talking about people who enlightened, quote unquote? Well, it does change a bit. It's like you're conscious, like the body, you can see that the body is sleeping, and you stay conscious and aware of whatever happens. So those are not dreams, or more like conscious dreams. You stay conscious. So can we first be conscious and then go into a dream without being conscious? Well, no, when the absolute realization is there, then there's no change anymore. In my own experience, I'm not like Gerald, because it happened to him quite, even though there's no time, but realization happened quite a long time ago. And there's there's an anchorage that is happening, and I can see that it is still deepening. But what I can tell you is my sleep is very different. And 2 days ago I was wondering, why can't I sleep? And I realized it was because I was so joyful. So sometimes the body is sleeping, but I'm conscious. So there's no more emotional things like fears or nightmares or dreams with desires that would come up. Do you know what I mean? That was a criteria to me, and it stayed up until the end. it's about sexual desire, which is usually quite strong in a human being. Well, now it's very, very different. It's not lived the same way. There's no more this. There's no more frustration, no more tension towards it. It doesn't hold. It can be here the same way, like oh, I want to drink a glass of water, but well, I've heard many different things from different masters, so everything is said. And I'm not saying that sexual desire is bad. Yeah, people are saying things differently. Yeah.
Dans l'éveil, c'est pas possible que tu aies du désir. C'est pas possible.
When awakened, you can't have any more desires, because desires is not now. So, as soon as you've got desires, then you know that you're not now. There's no more desires. That's the reason why. I could see it right after the shift. It wasn't manifesting because there was no tension towards anything but now. So life is just and only now. All the rest is there's no time. This imaginary world is just in your mind. And
si tu prévois la t'organises, tu donnes un rendez-vous à des gens tel jour, etc. Tu sais que voilà, ça fait partie du jeu, c'est des règles, donc tu les utilises quoi, comme tu as appris à utiliser un couteau et tout. Même si au final tu sais que tu peux.
So if you take an appointment with someone, or like or buying a ticket. Train tickets, or so you organize yourself, so you function it, you still function it, but
ça change rien quoi. Tu joues dans le relatif quoi.
It's yeah, it's
ton corps, c'est ton corps. Tu sais très bien que tes habits c'est pas ton corps, pourtant tu l'aimais. C'est un peu ça le fait d'organiser la vie. C'est-à-dire que tu l'organises.
En fait, c'est que j'ai conscience que tout ce qu'on appelle le temps et tout ce qu'on appelle l'espace, c'est en moi et c'est moi là. C'est moi qui crée en permanence.
To summarize, I would say that I know that whatever arises comes from me, in me. I've said it before, but all this time, all this universe appears instantaneously in you. It's not even milliseconds, it's not even each. There's no each. It's already here. Because to the mind, now is cut in pieces, but there's no such thing as pieces of now. That's why, and when it becomes hard to talk about it, it's instantaneous. It's so instantaneous that when the shift happened, well, to me, when what was the most disturbing was now is so still and stable. And this world apparently moves and fluctuates. I said something yesterday on Facebook. All this universe is a bubble of foam at the surface of the ocean of consciousness that you are, and that's really it. Consciousness is absolutely stable, totally stable, and it sees this decor moving from a point that is not moving and never going to move. You can't explain it, it's just known. And you know that this whole universe will be dissolved, we're still going to be here. It's not going to change. That's the reason why we say that consciousness is unborn. There's no such thing as a birth to consciousness. There's no creation, it's uncreated. Even with the mind, you can understand that. To see something, to see words on a page, like to see the letters on a page of a book, you need an immaculate white page, or to see a film you need a screen, a white screen that is not moving, that is stable. So this whole world appears to be moving, but really, to the subtlest of the subtlest,
il n'y a aucun mouvement.
there's no movement.
Parce que les particules qui sont là, elles sont là aussi.
All the
Entre guillemets,
particles
c'est pas vraiment des
are.
particules, mais... Donc là, on a l'impression que ça bouge, la main, mais ça bouge pas. C'est pas
So
vrai.
it appears, my hand appears to be moving, but it's not moving.
Il n'y a pas de temps, il n'y a pas d'espace.
And there's no time and no space in truth.
C'est pas quelque chose qui peut se comprendre
But
avec la
you
tête,
can't
ça-
understand that with the mind.
Enfin, peut-être qu'en parlant, ça peut créer un...
Well, maybe by talking about it, it can create
Ça fait certainement écho, résonance.
it does create an echo, resonance. So everything is consciousness. So it's resonating.
C'est un peu vite fait comme comparaison, mais
It's a
parler de
quick
ça, c'est
comparison,
exactement
but
comme parler à des personnages d'une bande dessinée qui vivent en 2D.
it's like talking. It's like trying to say to a 2D plane character that the 3D is existing. It's like trying to realize that there's another dimension that is existing. It's trying to understand that there's a dimension that is beyond, out of, not really out of, but
sur les objets, en fait, qu'on perd cette simplicité de l'être qui est non manifeste.
and it's just by, to be honest, it's just by focusing on objects that we lose that simplicity of being that is everywhere. And to realize that, we just need to go back within us, try and find this essence in ourselves, try to find the essence behind our own form, to see it behind every forms.
Mais c'est une saine envie. Tu sais, les sages, ils disent il n'y a qu'un seul désir qu'on s'autorise à garder.
That's the only desire that is allowed by great sages. It's this desire for awakening, that we can keep that one up to the very, very end. That's the very last one that drops. Because you realize that this tension, this little tension that it's still here, it drops. Because you realize there's no goal to attain. But at the same time, life.
Non, mais si vous êtes là, c'est que, a priori.
Believe that we had a role to fulfill. Yeah, but still, you're also here right now. So.
En fait. Et la réponse est oui et non, quoi.
So the answer is yes and no. We don't all have the same role or place. We don't live this all the same way. Those are appearances.
C'est marrant parce que là j'ai toutes les réponses en même temps parce qu'en fait
I've got all the answers to that. There's different level to that of answers. So from the very top, from the and even though saying from the highest, there's no high and no low really.
De toi, l'être absolu, la conscience absolue, il n'y a aucune différence entre éveil et pas éveil, donc il n'y a pas de non-éveil.
As yourself being absolute consciousness, there's no difference.
Tout ça, ça place parfaitement.
So everything is in its place, and really, there's really no difference. Consciousness.
Autant d'intensité, avec une grande intensité aussi chez quelqu'un qui n'est pas réalisé. La conscience jouit de toutes les expériences.
Consciousness enjoys the experience as much as someone who's enlightened, or as much as in someone who's not enlightened. Even in objects or inanimate objects or animals. Even being being enlightened is also a role. It's. So yeah, from that standpoint, there's no difference in between being enlightened or not. Yes, there's no change. There's no difference. Either you're conscious of being or either you're not conscious of being, then you still are. The only difference is that the character can be suffering, yes. Reason why, if you want to get out of suffering, like leave suffering, escape suffering, then there's that. So there's also the option of live to live and experience suffering in a good way, yes, which means to be conscious about it and welcome it. So it's gonna to be able to experience suffering in a good way. You'll have to get out of the little me. You'll see that the little me, the ego, is the problem in a way. As long as we think that there's a character that is to welcome suffering. To welcome suffering, you'll be positioning yourself from the heart rather than from the head. So the result is going to be the same. You'll end up being consciously conscious of being consciousness. It's just taking another route, another road. Yeah, you could say that there's some sort of progressing process. So at first, we are glued to suffering, like I am this sad, I'm sad, and I am the sadness. And with a bit of maturing, we can realize that we can take a step back. We can be the witness of this suffering. It diminish this suffering a bit, but it's not enough. That's why most of therapies won't go all the way through suffering. Most of therapies fail because they don't resolve the main problem, which is I am a character with problems and who thinks that is suffering. And at some point you realize, after taking a step back, you realize that there's a space in which suffering appears, and this pain, this suffering that was taking the whole space at first. Same if you were focusing on your hand, like if you're really into your hand, then there's only that. But if you take a step back, you realize that there's a space around the hand. And you'll start noticing that is this space around this hand is affected or impacted or changed by the hand. Same with suffering. Is that space changed or impacted by suffering? That's why we keep doing back and forth. So you keep having those experiences. And you realize that, but this being that I am is never affected, impacted by whatever experience that is appearing. And up to a point where there's a shift, consciousness turns itself to itself. It sits in itself. It understands. Well, it's not understanding, but it sees it's becoming aware that it is safe, that in itself. And that's where peace is, where happiness is. It does take some sort of maturing, like we need to look everywhere first, then we realize the very savor, the very flavor of being. That's the reason why we keep on having those relative joys. It's to realize the value of this permanent happiness and the very simple joy of being. And that's because it's too simple that we don't measure the value of it. The mind likes difficult things. But so it's like as long as we blocked on this hand, so if we are identified, then there's suffering. But as soon as we start focusing on this presence or consciousness, witnessing the hand, then we allow ourselves to accept what we are. And so we are, and so there we are enlightened. Well, we realize that you realize that you are enlightened because you've always been this enlightenment. Most people say it's not a mental thing, but it's like, how could I have missed that? Going back to your first question, what are we looking for? What did we came to get? Because when we will seek, there's so many directions we can take. So how can we be sure that we are going into the right direction? It's the directionless. It's the direction without direction. Every time you're going to tell yourself, I'm taking this direction from the absolute standpoint, it's going to take you away. But it appears to be a process. I can't say that there's no path and no processing, because I've been on this path for 17 years. And most of humans do go on a path. This journey, to me, well, not just to me, all sages, I think, say that. It's through the heart that it is the most effective. We can't enlighten, everyone as a mass, like, as if there were a method. But that's not how it works. It's through the heart, through the impulse of the heart. And that's what's going to drive you and guide you up to the end. Because that's going to take it is taking you back to what you are. It's life that is taking you back to yourself. Now, about the tools or practices, well, it's infinite. You can, awaken doing anything. Anything, being a hairdresser or peeling a potato while watching a TV or while meditating. Why does meditation works quite well? It's because it's a way to look at mechanisms that we have. So one thing that is important is follow your heart and be true, authentic. To be authentic is every time something appears, a resistance, or that there's someone who wants more, or there's a sense of lack, go into it. You don't wait for anything. You just go into it. How does it manifest? How does it manifest in your body, in the mind, emotionally? Don't lie to yourself. And it's by witnessing all those mechanisms that the ego can't, or the belief in the ego and the little me can't work anymore.
Là où il y a de la conscience, il ne peut pas y avoir d'inconscience.
wherever there is consciousness, you can't be unconscious. So as the more you get aware, or you become aware of patterns, then the more it's going to drop. So it's by seeing and witnessing all the limiting beliefs that you're going to free yourself.
Tout à fait. Bien au contraire. Voilà. Ah ouais.
Tout doit être vu.
Everything must be seen. There's no other way.
Je le répète encore, je le dis souvent en satsang, mais les premiers sages, en Inde, on les a appelés les
The first sages in India were called the rishis, those who see.
C'est quand tu vois tout, en fait.
It's that realization is really when you see everything. You see all the mechanisms in you and in others.
Donc tu te fais plus avoir.
You don't get trapped.
Faut que le piège soit caché. Tu vas pas mettre ton pied dans un piège à loup volontairement.
To be trapped by. To be trapped, you need to be unconscious about something. You're not going to put your feet into something that is going to grab your feet consciously. Yeah, so observing or seeing, witnessing is required. So yeah, that's the reason why meditation exists. Oh, you're annoyed while meditating? Well, good, perfect. That's what you need to see. Well, it's not encouraging. Yeah, but you can look at that, face to face. What we call meditation doesn't necessarily mean being sitting in the same place all the time. Yeah, sure. The simplest definition of meditation is, the most basic definition is the end of fluctuations of the mind, stopping the fluctuations of the mind. It's the end of following. The mind follows every single thought. It's like the mind creates stories with, associating ideas. Like in a few seconds, you end up in Singapore. So look at this annoyance. Look at those thoughts. Those are objects that are emerging in a space. You're the space, you're not the thought. You're the space that sees the thought. That is liberating. I don't give enough space then. Well, you don't allow yourself enough.
Il y a aussi un discernement qui est nécessaire. Le discernement, les yogis insistent énormément là-dessus parce que
discerning, and yogis are really insisting on that. Discerning what's real from what's unreal. Asatoma Sadgamaya. Drive me or lead me from what's unreal to what's real. It's to be able to see clearly what's true from what's not true. And most of thoughts, like believed thoughts, most of them are false. And what are the thoughts that are real? Well, good question. Is there a thought that is real? Well, as soon as we talk about the truth, we misrepresent it, or we distort the truth. That's why the Tao starts with that. The truth that can be named is not the truth. The Tao that can be named is not the real Tao. So what's in the background, this consciousness, this silence, in a way, is the truth. But a thought can't be conscious of itself. A thought is conceptual. So a thought that consciousness is being conscious about is, yeah, well, then it does change the quality of this thought, yes. It's very important to understand that you're not thinking your thoughts, you're not the thinker.
Non, c'est vraiment important de comprendre ça.
Pas grand-chose.
Doesn't change much.
Donc, le réel de l'irréel, c'est distinguer ce qui est vu,
So distinguish what is
de ce qui voit.
what is seen, which is the unreal, from what sees, which is the real, which is the truth. What fluctuates, what moves is unreal. Whatever emotional or whatever thoughts, every energetical experiences, all of that are impermanent. So that's not true. What's left?
La trame de fond, ouais. Et c'est comment?
Yes, this background. And how is it? Vibration. No, you can see vibration. You can perceive it. Unsayable. You can't talk about it. Yes, love could be, yeah, is a quality of this presence. So you can be conscious or aware that you are this character. And this character can be quite neurotic. So that's the foreground. So you can go into it like consciously, like you were talking about mentioning therapy. And you can do it consciously. And you can be aware that it's only you're just creating some space, really. Yes. Most of the time for people it's a progression. If I look back, it was perfectly organized. It was physical, then emotional. Physical, mental, emotional, and then spiritual. Because I was doing martial arts when I was younger. You don't need to do it, right? It's just that it was for me. Then there was emotional with singing and music. And then there was meditation. This character, this comprehension of the character doesn't need to be pushed away or brushed away. Yeah, no, on the contrary, like I said, you need to, well, not need, but you fully take, you fully become aware of how this little me is functioning.
Pas forcément nécessaire. Si ton cœur te le dit pas, c'est que ça va pas forcément être nécessaire pour toi.
Yeah, if your heart doesn't tell you to do so, then might not be necessary for you. There's more and more spontaneous awakening happening. People that have zero practice and wake up in the morning and yeah, that's how it is.
La vie est toute puissante sur la vie, quoi.
Life is
il peut se passer tout peut se passer, quoi.
Anything can happen. It's absolute power. Life is absolute power. So and there's no answer to that, to why this one and not this one would get instantaneous awakening.
Tu en prends forcément conscience quand tu vis un éveil
you are fully aware of what's happening when you're going through a spontaneous awakening. You might not understand it, but you are conscious of it. It reminds me of a young man who, aged 17, realized that it was one with the universe. And since then, he kept on going with his life without doing anything. There's no need to do anything.
Mais c'est ce que je disais tout à l'heure, c'est pas parce que tu réalises le soi que tu vas...
That's what I said, like, when you realize the self, doesn't mean you're going to become Jesus or Buddha. You can be yourself.
Tu peux vaquer à tes occupations.
you know, doing your own thing, have a normal life.
Ouais.
Comment il peut être sûr?
How can he be sure that it was
C'est un peu ça ma question.
awakening?
Ça, c'est le mental qui se pose la question.
Or that's the mind asking the question.
Lui, ça pose pas.
Non, par contre, ouais. Ce qui est sûr, c'est que lui, s'il vit encore des moments de
What's
où il est
certain
assujetti à la souffrance,
is if
faut
his
qu'il
living
prenne bien
moments
conscience
that
du
where
point commun entre
is
ce qu'il a
living
vécu
moments of
dans son
suffering,
état extatique du
then
Nirvana
he
et tout,
just needs to
et la vie de
realize
tous les jours la plus simple. La vie
what is the same
banale, entre
between
guillemets,
when he was
pour parler,
going through
voilà,
ecstatic states
de tous les jours.
and
Quel est le point commun?
the very
Être,
daily basic life.
être est toujours là.
Being is always here.
Et une fois que tu as trouvé ça,
And as soon as you realize that,
quand tu as compris ce que contient le moment le plus ordinaire de ta vie,
when you've
c'est là que tu
understood
réalises
what
l'extraordinaire.
is the more mundane moment of your life is made of, which is being, then you've understood
Être est là.
the most
Mais on
important part
n'entend pas
of
ça.
life.
On est focalisé sur autre chose.
Beingness is always there. We always, most of the time, focused on something else, looking for something else.
Tu dis en ce moment, il y a beaucoup d'éveil. Qu'en est-il de...
You say that there's a lot of awakenings at the moment. So, what to say about those ideas of end of the world?
C'est quoi la fin du temps?
Yeah, that's it. Precisely. What is the end of time?
Oui.
Sacred texts say that, yeah, apocalypse, end of the time. That's actually the self-realization. That's what it's talking about.
C'est quand tu sors du temps et de l'espace.
It's
Là, en ce moment,
realization
c'est
is when you
pas-
get
je suis en
you realize that there's no time and no space. I'm talking to you right now, and I'm outside of time and space.
Sachant que je suis pas du film,
I'm in the movie,
si tu veux.
but I'm knowing
Film qui
that I'm not from the
semble
movie.
avoir une
I'm
durée
conscious,
chronologique, mais je
aware
sais
that
très bien
I'm
que
in a
être
movie
n'est pas
where it
dans une
appears that
durée
there's a story happening, but being is not
La fin du-
part of
Ok, bah,
a time.
Est-ce que la fin des temps a déjà eu lieu? Est-ce qu'elle aura de nouveaux lieux? Est-ce que, comme il semblerait qu'il n'y a pas de passé, pas de présent, pas de futur, ce qui a déjà été écrit il y a des siècles en arrière semble se réaliser et semble s'être déjà réalisé?
Oui.
Tout ce qui est eschatologique, c'est-à-dire l'étude de la fin des temps, est-ce que
Ouais.
tout ça, ça a du sens? Est-ce que
So is there any sort of sense into eschatology, like the study of the end of time?
on est dans une période
Is it going to happen? Are we in the moment of the end of time? Would it be an era?
Ah oui, tu parles
Are you talking about an era? Oh yeah, right, on the relative state level. Yeah, right, for this humanity.
Tout ce que je peux te dire, c'est que les
All I
sages,
can tell you
j'ai
is
rencontré des yogis,
I've met yogis that,
la
yes,
plupart, enfin,
most of
la
them,
fin, en fait, la fin de l'ère égoïste.
it's the end of the
C'est en train,
selfish era.
on est en transition en ce moment.
We are
C'est
transitioning,
pour ça que la conscience émerge partout.
which is why consciousness is emerging everywhere.
Alors, voilà, c'est comme ça. Mais sinon, si je te réponds personnellement dans le vécu direct,
But if I answer you personally,
maintenant, et le début du temps, c'est maintenant.
the end of time is now and the beginning of time is now.
Je sais pas si tu... Et c'est ça, et ça c'est vrai.
That's the truth.
Ça c'est vrai. Et tant que tu te soucieras d'autre chose,
And as long as you'll worry about something else, but if you really want to realize the self,
ok d'accord. Ouais, c'est bien, parce
I'm
que
not worried
chez,
really. It's just a question.
tous les
Oh,
trucs
all right,
en
good.
trop,
Just drop everything that
des
is,
histoires de
it's
l'humanité, tout ça,
things about humanity and end of time. And like Ramana Maharshi would say,
laisse le monde prendre soin de lui-même.
for a while, let the world take care of itself.
Tu verras s'il y a vraiment un monde.
And afterwards you'll see if there's really a world.
Ce que je ressens là-dessus, c'est que le monde n'est pas tellement à changer, mais il permet à certains de changer. Donc une période de ce type un peu chaotique.
Those time allow people to
Exactement.
change, to become aware. Yes, that's the transition. That's the same with a human that is suffering. When a human is suffering, he looks for the place that is not suffering in him. Same with the all humanity, it's just bigger scale. That's why there's a lot of awakening happening, because there's suffering, well, per se. So that's the process, yes. How can we invest ourselves in this personal, well, this story, this character story, if it's not true, then that's the character who doesn't want to invest himself. What you're seeing that from this relative standpoint. Consciousness doesn't ask itself this question. Does consciousness tell the self, I don't really want to get involved? So what's the point in trying to stop the suffering if it's not true? There's also people that enjoy complaining and being suffering. It depends on what you want to live. What is it that you really want? That's the question. From the heart, from here. What do you really want? And just careful, it's always linked to, or related to a state of being, not any doing. It's not when I'll be doing this or when I'll have that. No, it's.
Si tu t'interroges sur la possibilité d'avoir en toi une partie qui pourrait être motivée par, en fait, c'est peut-être aussi cette partie-là qui se manifeste par la question.
Oui, qu'est-ce qui te motiverait du coup? C'est ça,
What would motivate you?
Qu'est-ce que tu veux?
What do you want? You can do whatever you want. You're absolute consciousness, no limit. You're limitless. So imagine you can do anything. What do you want? If there's no stakes, no high stakes, then I don't see the point. There's nothing is compulsory anymore. So I'm allowed to do nothing, or do everything. And there's no problem with consciousness doesn't have any problem with you not doing anything. You like that?
Il y a que, si tu restes dans le relatif, il n'y a que le regard des autres autour de toi. Et à un moment donné, si tu...
It's only if you stay in the relative level that, on this relative level, that you see what people might be thinking about you, but it might be uncomfortable for you. But if you don't care about that, if your goal is not to do anything in your life, then that's absolutely fine.
Joli comme ça ou intéressant et tout, tu sais que c'est un film.
Tout à fait.
Mais putain, je trouve que le scénario là, à ce moment-là, bah quand même.
Ça va aussi.
Whatever happens, it's good because you know that it's a movie and you can play with it. Yes. And this phase of non-motivation, I know a few people. That it brought them to awakening. They just stayed in the room and it happened. It's a path. It's a possible path. To have no taste for anything in this world can be a path. As well as enjoying and savoring this world and finding everything beautiful can be a path. You can do as you want. It's rather good, right? Doesn't need to be the way I want because it doesn't matter. Life doesn't think in it's useful or it's not useful. Everything is useful. Even doing nothing might bring you
chose que la conscience.
But reassure
jouit pas
yourself.
à travers toi. Même la
You
conscience de je
you
sais
are
pas.
useful because consciousness is
Donc,
enjoying itself through you.
Tu vois ce que je veux dire? Tu sais forcément. Ça te rassure?
Are you reassured?
Mais elle, c'est toi. Elle, c'est toi.
And
Il y a pas de séparation, quoi.
consciousness is you.
C'est
There's
toi.
no separation, so it's you.
Rien n'est séparé.
Ouais, c'est un décision, toi. De rien
Ouais.
faire. Comme tout, de tout pour faire un monde.
Bah ouais, y a pas de souci.
C'est infini, quoi, en fait.
Ouais.
Est-ce que ça peut expliquer le suicide?
Can it explain suicide?
Bah, le suicide. En fait, le suicide, c'est souvent. Quand
Suicide is often
il y a une telle souffrance que.
there's such a suffering that we want to disappear,
Ça marche pas.
but it doesn't work
Quand tu as la conscience absolue, ce qui se passe.
because you are absolute consciousness.
Ouais, je
So
parle un peu de l'astral, mais
so I'm going to talk a little bit about the astral.
Quand on quitte le corps, on se retrouve dans un
So
corps
when we leave
subtil.
this body, we end up in a subtler
Ils veulent se retuer.
plane,
Mais ça marche
and
pas.
suicidal people try and kill themselves again, but it doesn't
Quand
work.
tu as la conscience, tu peux pas mourir.
Your consciousness, you can't die, so it's impossible to.
En fait, derrière tout ça, il y a le désir de tuer,
Behind
de se
that.
débarrasser de tout ce qui est égoïque. En fait.
Behind that, the desire is to kill the egotistic part of.
C'est tout, quoi. Voilà.
Eh, mais comme tu es le corps physique, ça suffit pas.
Et bien sûr, ça sert à rien puisqu'on est pure conscience, donc.
There's no use, no need to kill yourself because you're pure consciousness. That's not the solution.
D'accord,
But
oui, mais quand on pousse la question loin, ça sert à rien de toute façon que je veuille pas, et tout ça, tu te dis, bah,
it's needless whether I want something or not.
ça sert à rien de vivre, quoi.
There's no purpose in living if we stay on that level.
Si ça sert à ce que l'unité.
It's useful for unity to enjoy duality.
Ça sert à ce que,
It's useful
à ce que toi, la conscience
for
absolue, tu
consciousness
puisses voir.
yourself can see yourself.
S'il n'y avait pas ce monde-là, tu pourrais pas. te
Without
voir.
this world, you couldn't see yourself. Without forms, you couldn't see
Donc,
yourself.
ça sert à ça.
So that's the
C'est tout. Et c'est ça l'amour. L'amour, c'est quand tu sais
Use
que
of
je
it.
suis là.
and that's
Le je
love.
suis, là,
The-
être, c'est pareil partout. C'est pareil
It's
pour les
it's
objets,
love
c'est
is when
pareil.
you see that this I am here, I am is everywhere, and there's a fusion, there's unity, unifying.
Ça, ouais,
It's
c'est ça l'amour, et c'est pour ça qu'on-
from the heart through the heart, and that's why we are one. That's love.
Est-ce que peut-être une dernière question parce qu'on a, je crois qu'on a déjà pas mal. Un peu. Une ou deux.
Moi, c'est la question du sens, parce que tout à l'heure,
What
tu
about
disais, bah, il n'y a pas de processus
meaning then?
répétissé pour aller jusqu'à l'éveil. Pourquoi ça n'existerait pas? Enfin,
Un processus?
oui, comment dire? C'est la question du sens. Pourquoi?
Why?
Comment accepter le grand mystère?
How to accept this great mystery? How to accept that?
Qu'il n'y ait pas de sens et qu'il n'y a
Ouais.
rien.
Since there's no
Ouais.
meaning,
Bon, il y a une partie de moi qui est en colère. Qui...
so there's a part of me that is angry.
Pas un petit, et puis,
Ouais.
voilà.
Mais tu sais, la grande majorité des
Most
humains
of
sont persuadés,
human
et même moi
beings,
aussi, même quasiment tout le monde, on est persuadé qu'il y a un processus.
Even me, I
Parce
was.
que ça rassure le mental. Je vais faire pour avoir, pour être le schéma classique.
We are reassured that there's a process. You know, we feel comfortable in the idea that there's a process I'm gonna
En fait,
do to get to be, and
c'est
it's all right.
justement là, c'est dans le je ne sais pas.
But it is in this
De-
I don't know that you realize what you are.
La présence, c'est un grand je ne sais pas.
Presence is a big I don't know. Now that's interesting.
Ouais, c'est forcément.
For- To who?
Ouais.
Bah oui, pour qui c'est agaçant?
Mais je ne sais pas des qualités aussi, tu vois.
And I don't know
Je ne
has
sais pas,
qualities
ça a
of its
beaucoup
own.
de qualités.
It has lots of qualities.
Je ne sais pas, a pas de problème d'avoir à perdre son savoir.
I don't know has no trouble with
C'est bien pour l'humilité, ouais.
losing, knowledge.
Parce
It's
que,
good for
mais je
humility.
le sais, ça en ajoute au personnage. Hein.
All the I knows, it kind of adds on this character, this little me.
La majorité des réalisés souvent
Most of
sont pas des.
Enlightened people
Souvent, il y a des exceptions, mais souvent sont pas des
often
grands
are not
intellos, on pourrait dire.
huge intellectual people.
C'est pas des gens qui ont des tonnes et des tonnes de connaissances, souvent.
Those are not
Même
people
souvent, c'est même
that
qui
have
sont des
lots of
analphabètes,
knowledge.
des-
Quite
soit des gens
often,
qui ont
those are
vraiment,
illiterate.
c'est, je dis pas que c'est une condition.
I'm not
Je dis pas que
saying
c'est
it's a
une condition,
condition,
mais c'est souvent le cas.
but it's often the case.
Parce que des fois, quand on en rajoute beaucoup,
Because sometimes when we add lots of things,
on s'éloigne, quoi.
we
En tout cas, c'est surtout
we
le fait
drive
qu'on
ourselves
croit
away.
savoir. Quand je crois savoir, là, ça commence à être dangereux.
The trap is to think that we know. We can have knowledge, we can read things, we can do things, but when we start believing that I know and I know the truth, which is the worst, that's when it's. I heard a phrase in a sentence while meditating. The problem is the known, the solution is the unknown. Could be said like that, yes. But the unknown, you realize that you already know it. That's because it's our culture, but if, for instance, Jesus in front of Ponce Pilate asks, what did you come here for? And Jesus says, I'm here to witness and testify about the truth. And Ponce Pilate being very, very intelligent, and he asks, what's the truth? And Jesus doesn't answer, because there's no answer. The ultimate answer is when there's no more answers. Right. That's it.